Minister for Home Affairs, the MP from McPherson on the Gold Coast is Karen Andrews. She's a Cabinet Minister as well. Good morning to you, Minister.
Good morning, Neil. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. I'm well. This horrific murder of British MP Sir David Amess, obviously, look, it shocked everyone, but sent shockwaves around the world. And you spoke about it in Parliament yesterday, and you also met with AFP Commissioner Reece Kershaw. So tell us about the safety of Australian MPs.
Yes, look, I think everyone was shocked by the murder of Sir David Amess in the UK really only a few days ago now, towards the end of last week. So it did send shockwaves. It's been considered now to be a terrorist event by UK authorities, and it will be investigated as a terrorism event accordingly. Look, here in Australia, I guess it's a timely reminder to us about the continual threat of a terrorist attack. That remains at probable and has been here since 2014. Of course, this is a member of Parliament, so this is an elected representative of the people who has been murdered. And of course, we need to, consider what those implications are for us here in Australia. So, yes, I spoke in Parliament yesterday and gave condolences to the friends, family of Sir David. But I also met yesterday with the Commissioner for the Australian Federal Police, Reece Kershaw, and just talked to him about the advice that has been given to MPs and senators over, quite frankly, a number of years about the actions that they need to take to make sure that they remain safe, and also sought some advice about any additional actions that needed to be taken by MPs and senators. But I think also to put this in the context that I have also spoken recently about the terrorism threat to all Australians here. So we've had a timely reminder in terms of elected representatives, but the threat does remain for all Australians at this point in time.
Yeah, look, do our MPs feel under threat? Is anyone worried?
Look, I think worried may be too strong, but I think that they are conscious of the increasing threat. People do obviously need to be able to speak to their MPs, and we want that to continue. We want a high level of accessibility to politicians. There just need to be some boundaries. And sometimes those boundaries are being crossed. We had a recent example in the Northern Territory where the home address of the chief officer of the NT was actually publicly stated and put him at risk. So
that's ridiculous.
It is. So I think, yes, people do know where we live, but that shouldn't be broadcast through any channels, whether that's on social media or through the media more generally. That shouldn't happen because that does put people at risk, and it puts their families at risk too, and we don't want any of that to happen. And of course, we have staff working in our electorate offices, so we all have obligations to the people that we work with, and we need to make sure that we're supporting all of those people.
The Australian Criminal Intelligence Commission's released its 18th illicit drug data report, a staggering increase across the country. You mentioned this last week or the week before about how many people in Australia are taking drugs, but you've got some specific statistics on Queensland that aren't good.
No. And I think I've mentioned before, Neil, that Australians have a very big appetite for drugs, which is very concerning. So we are a prime target for the drug cartels to be importing drugs into Australia. And whilst we can pick a lot of that up at the borders, we're not picking up everything that's coming through. And whilst there is such a big appetite for drugs by Australians, we will continue to be a target. But in Queensland alone, some of the statistics are absolutely appalling. So cannabis in particular accounted for the biggest proportion of illicit drug seizures in Queensland. That was about 57%. So Queensland also had the greatest proportion of national amphetamine arrests, so ice, ecstasy. We had 30%, or just over 30% of cannabis arrests, and steroids, we had over 50%. So
that's a lot. Queensland's,
Yep.
we like to punch above our weight, but not in that category.
Yeah, absolutely. The statistics for Australia are appalling, and for Queensland, when you start to break it down, to be getting 30% plus in illicit drug categories is just unacceptable.
Before you go, this, cyber attacks and everything, there's more legislation going before Parliament today. My understanding is it'll give the government power to step in and help with possible attacks on critical infrastructure, because some of our big businesses mightn't be equipped to deal with it when it happens. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically this is all about protecting our critical infrastructure, and that is things like our water supplies, but also food and grocery is considered to be critical infrastructure. So we want to make sure that in the event of a cyber attack, the government, as a last resort, can step in and make sure that things such as our food supplies continue to operate. Now, we don't have the expectation that every single business out there will be able to do what is needed in the event of a cyber attack. That's why the government, with its significant assets and capabilities, is there to assist to make sure that we're supporting all Australians.
Yeah, exactly. So, Karen Andrews, thanks very much for joining us this morning on 4BC Breakfast.
It's a pleasure. Take care.
Have a good day on the Gold Coast.